All right, everybody, welcome back. Alex, what's happening?
All right, how's it going? How's it going? How's everybody doing?
Well, today we have the first of a two-part video that we're planning, and we're going to be talking about our personal favorite Friday the 13th films. And the reason that we're going to be talking about our personal favorites is because our personal favorites don't match each other. So we felt like, you know what? Yeah, let's talk about this because why did we choose four different movies as, our personal favorites?
Right.
And that's what we want to get into today in this first part. So, Alex, without further ado, would you like to introduce your first pick for personal favorite for today?
Sure. One of my personal favorite Friday the 13th films, of course, is the very first one, the Friday the 13th. Reason being is because it's the beginning of the franchise. I also believe that Pamela Voorhees is a underrated character. I absolutely love the idea of her, how she came across in the film, and just her being, a slasher with reasons behind her, with motives behind her actions. I just think it's just
Yeah.
badass. And again, we don't really hear her mentioned because everybody's always talking about Jason, hockey mask,
Yeah.
whatever. And I get that, I mean, I understand where it comes from, and I'm at all with Jason too. But you gotta understand that it happened. Everything has a beginning, and the beginning film to me was kind of like the foundation of everything, because to me, it's based off of her rage, her anger, based on what happened
Hmm.
to her son. And again, to me, it's not talked about enough. So that's my reasons behind liking number one.
I can agree with part one, being a fave of yours, just for the fact that Pamela actually does have a motivation. Jason's motivation is it becomes a little more nebulous as the series goes on. He's
Absolutely.
just a killer.
Right.
Pamela had a reason, absolute revenge for what happened to her son.
Right.
Um, I can say real quick before you get into part one is that the reason it probably isn't one of mine is because I have like an affinity for hockey mask, Jason. And
Right. Yeah. I get it.
also this movie,
I'm right with you.
yeah, part one came out in what, 1980?
Yeah.
It was
1980.
1980.
Yeah. May 9th.
Yeah, I was 2 years old. I was two
Yeah.
years old.
I
You
get
know
it.
what I'm saying? So like it doesn't have that same I don't know, nostalgia for me. I saw it,
Right.
I was, I probably started moving when I was 3, 4, 5 years old.
Yeah.
Probably like 3 or 4, because I remember watching it like really young. And another movie I shouldn't have been watching, of course.
Yeah. Yeah. It was.
But
Yeah.
I have memories of it. It's not one of those ones that like it just doesn't stick in my head like some of the other ones.
Right, I get it. I get it. And for me, I mean,
Yeah.
I was 8 when it came out. It came out in the theaters, and I think it was on cable shortly after that. And again, it's not something that, I mean, compare this to like what the films we talked about before, Alligator or Jaws. I mean, I
Right.
wasn't thinking about no Pamela Voorhees, and I was scared as hell about teeth
Yeah.
and shit about to eat me,
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
as an adult, sticking with the horror stuff, and as an adult growing into the story and understanding what transpired and how the franchise blossomed and blew up, that's when my appreciation started, for it.
Yeah.
And it just, now again, it's up there with me as far as at the top of the key, starting with the
Right.
beginning, because without all of the what do you want? I want to call, like, without all the voodoo and the supernatural things, if we just take this story based on what it is, bare
Yeah.
bones, it's still a good flick without having a lot of the supernatural stuff. Because you notice you didn't really see anything of that caliber till the end, till Jason kind of comes jumping out of the lake, But the rest of the
Yeah.
story was pretty much kind of just cut and dry. Just
Yeah.
teenagers in a bad situation, assed out,
Yeah.
pretty
Yeah.
much.
It wasn't,
So
supernatural, super strong, super zombie killer.
no,
It was
no,
just
no,
a
no.
kind of an ordinary slasher movie until the very end,
Right.
like you said.
right. You know, and you look at it. I mean, she wasn't. You know, Pamela wasn't overpowering. You know, but she
Yeah.
was in shape and she was quite capable. See, that's the thing that I don't know why people don't speak about a lot more. When you look at some of these killers and some of these villains, you know, and you look at the carnage that they create, are they capable? I mean, could she really have done it? Hell yeah. She was an
Yeah. Right.
ambush freaking master, man. You know, and the movie shows, so.
Yeah.
But yeah, the film came out in May 9th, 1980. Give you a little small bit of history behind it. But the writer was Victor Miller, and the director and producer was Sean Cunningham. Um,
Yeah.
we all know about the legal stuff that they had going on for a few years.
Yeah.
I think it's finally over now, but
Yeah. I think they finally addressed it. Yeah.
it kind of held up the franchise for a while. So hopefully now that it's over, maybe we'll start to see some more content come out. But the music was done by Harry Manfredini. I want to make sure I
Yeah.
pronounce that right. He's the guy that made the iconic, you know what I'm saying, with the violin and shit.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
themes that we all know and love now. And it was just distributed by Paramount Pictures, and Paramount did it, I guess, you on the U.S. side, and I didn't even know that Warner Brothers was behind it internationally. So that's how it got
Oh
out
yeah.
there. Yeah, they had a budget of 600,000, and it grossed like 59.8 mil, man. So that's just like
Yeah. It's a
that's
monster
like
hit.
quadruple what the heck they started off with. It's ridiculous. So again, I
Yeah.
can understand why the legal stuff happened. But as far as like character wise, we've got Mrs. Voorhees was played by the late and great Betsy Palmer. Betsy Palmer's been on TV through since like the 50s, all the way up
Right.
until I think till she passed. I think she was still doing some con Q&As and stuff like that. So we have Alice, who's the final girl, who's played by Adrian King. Me and my girlfriend actually had an opportunity to meet her at one of the cons they had in Williamsburg, and I tell you, that was a pretty nice experience. She's a sweetheart, man. You meet her at one of the cons.
Right.
She's very approachable. She talks to you. Her and my girlfriend kind of hit it off really well to the point where I just had to like say, "Hey, look, we got to go because we got like
Right. Right.
500 mad people right behind us. We got to leave."
Right.
We was talking like 10 minutes, and everybody's like, "What's going on? Man, get your ass out of the way." So, but it was a nice time though, man. So if you ever get a
Yeah.
chance to, or anybody that's listening, if you ever get a chance to see her at a con or get her autograph, she's absolutely wonderful, man. Um,
Yeah.
and we've got, a series of others that, kind of call them like cannon fodder, pretty much. The people that died.
Yeah.
But I mean, I got to mention Kevin Bacon.
Right.
I don't know why I can't see him past this point. See him getting stabbed with that arrow through his throat.
Yeah.
All his other stuff kind of just goes. "Ear," but oh yeah, the guy that got
Yeah.
killed in Friday the 13th. That's what I know Kevin Bacon from. You know, but that was a great scene too. So,
Was
but
that his
yeah,
first movie?
I'm not sure. I'm thinking it might be, but you know what? If you look at him compared to all the other people in the film that cast him in the film, he was mighty. He came off kind of like a Harrison Ford. He was a little bit more older and a little bit more mature than I think the rest of them.
Right.
Just the way he did it, he delivered his lines and stuff, just a little
Right.
bit different than the rest, man.
Yeah.
But still, he did a great job. So
If this is in your top two Friday films,
right.
why? Like, what is it about this movie that puts it up there for you?
So basically, the way the story is Jason was supposed to be one of the council kids at the camp. He is a special needs child. I think he's there. I'm not sure if he was Down syndrome or malformed, but anyway, along those lines, he was special needs, and he was neglected, and eventually, because of the neglect, he drowned in 1957. The
Mhm.
current time, Pamela Voorhees was cooking at the camp, so she was using that kind of like as a babysitting tool while she was doing the work, while she was working, trying to make ends meet because she was a single parent. Um, I'm thinking after that, the Christies were the ones that owned the camp because of his death. They of course they had to shut things down for a while, and I'm sure they paid her Pamela Voorhees off, substantially because of what happened.
Right.
But that wasn't enough for her, man. In 1958, she came back and killed the counselors, I guess, that neglected to watch her son and watched her son drown. That was the scene right in the beginning. The two counselors that were up in the loft, kind of trying to get it on, and the one guy
Yeah.
gets up, man, we weren't doing nothing. She shanked him right off the jump, man. Shut up, ugh! And then the other girl, she's trying to do the shimmy, and she ends up getting done too. But again, looking at her character, and I guess the way the anger and the regret and the depression kind of like seeped in, and it was kind of like seething with her, just simmering, man. Even killing them wasn't enough. So,
Yeah.
we're at 1958 now. So from 58 all the way till about 78, they had a series of fires at the camp. The Christies, of course, weren't able to reopen, because of the fires. And I think in 1962, they had a poison water issue. This is all Pamela. I'm thinking to myself,
Right.
maybe Pamela had, she never left the town or the county, and I'm sure she lived close by. Maybe she bought a
Yeah.
house close by. She just never could get over the fact of her son was killed, was dead, and neglected. So that's kind of like where my love for her character kind of builds, because you want to know psychologically. You're looking at, damn man, that's 22 years. All right, from 57 to 78, 79. That's 22 years, man, roughly.
Yeah.
And still, with even if she had accomplished what she wanted to accomplish that night, I still don't think it would have been over, man. She's just one of those things where
Yeah.
it just would have kept going with her.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
became something else other than just I need to get them back for what they did. And to
Yeah.
me, just the psychological aspect of Pamela, the changes that she had to go through to get to that point where she's like, all bets are off. I'm shutting everything down. It's just,
Yeah.
it's intriguing to me, man. I love that type of killer, that it's like,
Right.
I'm going to get you no matter what, and I'm not going to stop, and it's not just your fault. It's everybody's fault now,
Right.
so it kind of like, it almost like it manifests itself into another life, and it grew. So, if you keep those points in mind, and then understand that the weapon of choice was a Bowie knife, which of course is a hunting, skinning, butcherer's knife, you
Yeah.
got a pretty interesting and menacing killer on your hands.
I got a question. Do you feel like your favoritism for this movie? Do you feel like it's more based on the motivations and the plot, or the way, or the killings?
I like the motive. I guess both, man, because she was ruthless,
Yeah.
man. She didn't cut any corners with anybody, man. And I mean, yeah, you look at these kids were, late teens, early 20s, maybe, at the most. Maybe Kevin Bacon's character Jack might have been like maybe early 20s. Everybody else was like
Yeah.
18, 17, 18, 19. I think Annie might have been a little bit. That was the girl that tried to hitchhike in and ended up getting picked up by Pamela and got her throat cut when she tried to jump out the Jeep and run
Right.
through the woods. She might have been up there in age too, maybe close to Kevin Bacon's character's age. But yeah, she didn't cut anybody any corners, man. She didn't care.
Yeah. Did Tom Savini do the effects for this one?
Yeah, Tom Savini was involved in the practical effects.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, because actually if you got the special features on, like, because there's an uncut version. That's the one that I watched, uncut version for Friday the 13th Part 1. If you watch it and you go to special features, they actually have a Q&A panel that has all of them on it. And Tom Savini's at the end. He's talking about, some of the stuff that he did, the
Yeah.
practical effects that he kind of created to look for young Jason when Jason kind of jumped
Right.
out of the lake and grabbed Alice at the end.
Is
But
that
yeah,
the greatest jump scare to you?
nah, nah. I mean, the way that they were explaining it though was they wanted
Yeah.
to wait as long as possible, even to the point where people started to doubt, is there something going to happen? There's something going to happen. Because I mean, that scene was long. You got her floating out there, and she's just kind of like looking at the water. Everything's all serene and whatnot. The cops pull up, and the cops yelling, and the other cops at the driver's door. Hey, hey, and she's just like, oh. they're here, to save me or whatnot. It's this long, drawn out scene to the point where it got to the point where it's almost like, all right, where's the credits at? The credits
Yeah, yeah,
coming, and then all of a sudden out of nowhere, here he come grabbing her and snatching her in the water, and I'm just like,
yeah,
wow, okay. Now
yeah.
as a kid, that terrified the shit out of me. I was like, oh my god,
Yeah.
what the hell is that? Big
Right.
ass long head and shit.
Yeah.
It scared the hell out of me, man. But looking back on it now, as an adult, I'm just like, yeah, it fit,
Yeah.
But again, where that to me could have been taken either like maybe something in her mind and Alice's
Right.
mind.
Psychological. Yeah.
Uh, right. It didn't have to be something that, grew into some supernatural thing. It could have been just like, because again, after that scene, she woke up in a hospital,
Hmm.
and she was asking, well, where's the boy? Where's the boy? The cop was like, ain't no boy. There's no
Right.
boy. Nobody was brought in. Oh, then he's still there, and you know what I'm saying? And then here we
Yeah.
are opening it up for,
Yeah.
10 other movies,
Right.
Um, they could have kept it. They could have kept the story like I was satisfied with just what unfolded. Period.
Yeah.
Because the infight between Alice and Mrs. Voorhees was great. I thought it was absolutely wonderful because here you're taking somebody, Alice, of course, she was in shape, for her age, and of course, Mrs. Voorhees was capable, but Alice wasn't a fighter, and I think
Yeah.
none of these characters. That's the shame part about this film, but it's also satisfying to me. None of these characters in here were fighters. I mean, you look at Mr. Christie, the guy that was working on a camp. Yeah, he was in shape. He could have scrapped, squared up if he needed to. But most of these folks were just
It's regular. Yeah.
suburban kids, rural area kids, what I'm saying, looking toward the future, their college freaking
Yeah.
careers and whatever else. They had no idea what was coming, man. And I mean,
Yeah.
they got smoked, steamrolled, you know, flattened the
Yeah.
whole camp, man.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's the thing that I think that's where the scares come in for me. Like, that's where the
Yeah.
grit is because here you are, you're this person, Joe Schmo, you know, I
Right.
just passed my algebra exam. I just graduated high school, and now I'm up against this freaking killer with intent. You look what you did to
Right.
my son. The fuck,
Right.
like perfect example. Perfect example. Ned, the guy that was dressed up as like a war chief. He had the freaking
Right.
feathers on and flipping around in the yard in
Right.
his freaking underwear. When he got smoked, Mrs. Voorhees had stepped into that cabin area and stayed there just long enough so that he could see her. She turned around and he got a glimpse of her face and he's like, wait a minute, who the hell are you? Can I help you? And then she
Right.
goes into the cabin. And this dumbass, oh, excuse me, hello, goes right up behind her, going inside. It's dark as hell in there.
Time
Walks
to get
right into an
smoked.
ambush.
Yep.
She probably slammed his ass to the side and cut his fucking throat. Shut up. You're
Yeah.
done. Just like no remorse,
Yeah.
no nothing. I'm going to get rid of this kid. That's
Yeah.
what happened.
Yeah.
And he got smoked. I mean, I hate to say it, and I feel kind of bad looking at, all the characters and kind of sizing them up with their capabilities, but nah, him
Yeah.
done. Let's see who else. I think if she had to smoke Kevin Bacon's character, I think Kevin might have given her a run for the money. I think
Yeah.
Jack and Bill, the guy that was playing the guitar that went out there to fix the generator at the end. He was like the last person with Alice before she just became the last person at the camp.
Right.
He was pretty capable as well too. But again, Jack got ambushed. She killed the hell out of him.
Yeah.
And then of course Bill, you didn't. I mean, a lot of these deaths happen off camera.
Yeah.
You kind of saw him go fiddling with the generator, and then he was gone. Next time you saw him, he was jacked up.
Yeah.
He had arrows and everything in his ass. Throat was
Yeah.
cut. God damn,
I, I-
So yeah,
so I, I
she was ruthless, man.
I
Go
think
ahead.
that like what if if there's like a lasting legacy of this movie, it is like the Pamela character because she's brought up in almost every movie in a lot. She's not every movie, but like she's brought up a lot. She's brought up in the Nintendo game. She's brought up in
Yeah,
the newer PS4, Friday the 13th game.
right. She was the motivation, the voice behind
Right.
Jason.
She's an integral
Kill
character.
him.
Like if you're playing the NES game, you had to get Pamela's sweater, and that
Yeah,
made you basically like invincible. Fighting Jason or whatever. She was important. If you found the sweater in the PlayStation game,
in the
you know
game. Yep.
you kind of you can kind of like daze Jason a little bit to get
Yeah.
some licks on him. I think, you know, as a character and as a movie, you know, that's kind of the legacy for this movie. Because like for me, I'm gonna get into a couple reasons why I don't really get down with the first one.
Okay, that's cool.
It's because like as on its own, it is a good slasher movie.
Mhm.
But in retrospect, if you put it together with all the other ones, it's a totally
Mm.
different movie almost. And continuity wise, like part one doesn't really match part two. And let me tell you why.
Right. And then the rest
Because
of them. Right, right, right.
right, because did Jason drown or not? You know what I'm saying? If she's going through all this for a kid that isn't dead, you know, what is then that changes what her motivation is. Like that just makes her a psychopath. It's not revenge.
Yeah.
And if he's alive, where was he at in part one? And I
Mm.
know like part two tries to like, you know, do some chicanery with, you know, the story or whatever. But
Right.
like it just those the continuity just doesn't work when you look back on
It
it
doesn't match.
retroactively. And then it becomes, you know, even more like, and by part three it becomes a little
Mm.
more like uh supernatural almost, where
Yeah.
Jason's taking too much damage. Like he's taking damage in the second movie, but he's taking too much damage. You know what I'm saying?
Jason
Like
was
you know, he's now let me just say this. Let me
Jason
just
was
say this.
roided up in part three,
Right.
bro. He was.
Let me say this. At part three, part three is in my like honorable mentions. If I only had to pick two movies, I can't put three in there. But it's like an honorable mention for me because part three came out in '83 as a 3D one, and by then I was 5 years old and I was fully conscious of what I was watching.
Yeah.
And
5 years.
part three legitimately scared me as a kid.
He was freaking ruthless, dude. He
Right,
was
Jason in that movie
ruthless.
was legit scary because he was still a man. You know what I'm
Mm.
saying?
Yeah.
He didn't have gloves on. He, you know, he had his sleeves was up here. You know what I'm saying? You could see his wrist. He was still a dude, and he was big, and he was mean, and that's the movie where he got the hockey mask. That's the one where
Yeah.
he gets the cut in the hockey mask. Like, there's a lot
Mm-hmm.
of iconic things that happen in part three. A lot of people, for whatever reason, don't like that movie. I really enjoy it.
Mm.
I've always just enjoyed it. I don't
Part
know
three
why.
is.
If you compare part three to part one, it's like, okay, those continuities don't match. So you have to consciously say, okay, well, I'm gonna that like part one and two don't exist, and
Mm. Okay.
start with part three. So for me personally, because of my age and when I saw the movies, the real first movie for me is part three.
Right.
I know that's not how it is in the series, but that's for me. It starts with part three,
Right.
and
Because
I think
there's no real connection there. Like you have
right.
to speculate. It's almost like the stuff that we get into with the thing. Like you've got to put your own there to make it
Mhm.
fit. Because
Yeah,
again, when you're looking at it balls to balls, it don't fit, man. It
it
doesn't
don't
fit.
fit.
What is
Right,
this?
the two different
Yeah.
series.
How's he still alive?
Right.
Yeah.
So
How's he still alive?
yeah, and then I think part four they kind of perfected. They perfected Jason. They perfected that Jason in part four.
Yeah.
Part five, we know about part five. I ain't gonna get all into that, but and I don't hate part five. Don't get me wrong. I don't hate part five.
Right.
It just is to me. It's the one you can kind of throw away.
Yeah, I got it.
That leads me into my favorite Friday film, which is part six. And I don't know. Actually, I think I do know why it's my favorite. But for years, I don't think I could really grasp at why it was my favorite. Maybe it was when I saw
Mm.
it because that movie came out in '86. '86 was the same year I moved to Alaska. That movie came out in August. I
Right.
moved to Alaska like that spring, and I didn't go to the movies to see it, but I did catch it on when it came out on like pay per view because like my dad ordered it on pay per view,
Hmm.
and my parents were downstairs watching. They didn't know I was upstairs watching too, because I wasn't supposed to be watching that shit.
Oh yeah,
At the
yeah.
time, yeah, I was 8 years old, so I was watching it upstairs, and it's crazy the stuff we used to get away with back in the day, like
Yeah.
because you couldn't pause shit, so you weren't gonna get up. So it's
No,
like
no, no. You had to sit there.
right. So I knew that like yeah, I can just sit here and watch it. I think my dad was recording it too, but anyway, I just remember loving that movie, and just because it had that mid '80s like had that this mid '80s feel for like all those mid '80s
Yeah.
horror movies that we love, like Night of the Creeps and shit like that. It just kind of had that
Hmm.
feel, and
It did.
it had like a little bit of humor, and it had like great kills. It had a great
Hmm.
opening. That opening is sticks in my brain. That they bring Jason back to life, like Frankenstein, basically. You're struck by
Mm.
lightning.
Right.
Lightning does everything in movies. You know what I'm saying? It
Yeah.
brings shit back to
Brings
life,
back the
makes shit
dead.
stronger. Yeah. Um, the scene where the couple's in the Beetle in the woods. First of all, why are you driving through the woods in the Beetle? But anyway, and Jason's standing there with the spear, and murks both of them. Stabs the car like that. It scared me as a kid, but I loved it. I
Yeah.
loved it. I loved that Jason because this is the movie where he becomes zombie Jason.
Yeah. Yeah. He was good because
Indestructible.
he took about what 3 shots from old boy in the Beetle with that
Right.
38
Right.
point blank. Pow pow. Get your ass out of here.
Oh,
Get your ass out of
he
here.
punched through Horshack's chest. You know what I'm saying? So,
Whew.
like
Yeah.
right from the beginning, they established that Jason is he's just forget all that shit you saw in the previous movies. All right,
Hmm.
Jason did die. He did die in part
Yeah.
4. Forget about part 5. He
Yeah.
died in part 4. He's a freaking zombie now,
Yeah.
and they established that right from the beginning. It wasn't some voodoo curse or some shit like that. No, he just got struck by lightning.
No.
Now he's an undead killing machine.
Up and up.
Okay,
Hmm.
now watch the rest of the movie. Now that you know what you're dealing with.
Yeah.
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 So real quick, I'm gonna get into the cast real quick. This is
Go for
the
it. Go for it.
first movie for what's the guy's name? Thom. I think his name is pronounced Thom Matthews. Looks like Tom Matthews, but I think it's pronounced Thom Matthews. But he plays Tommy Jarvis. And
Tommy Jarvis. Okay. Yeah.
the first time we see Tommy Jarvis is part 4, played by Corey is it Feldman.
Corey Feldman. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and it's played by a different actor in part 5. You got him as Tommy Jarvis. The main girl in the movie is Megan, played by Jennifer Cook. I believe it's Megan, and the sheriff
Yeah. I think it was
David
Megan.
Kagan. David Kagan's the sheriff. The black girl in the movie. I didn't know for until recently that she was on a soap opera forever. Give me one second. Days of Our
Got
Lives.
the twist and head
Right,
taken off
right.
with the slippers.
Day,
Yeah. Oh
Days of Our Lives
man, I
from
didn't know she.
1982 to 2012.
I didn't know she was
1,752
on there.
episodes. Yeah.
See, now I got to go back. I got to go back and look
Yep.
because I had a crush on her, man. She was hot.
Oh, hell yeah.
She was
Man,
hot.
that was the reason I brought her up.
Yeah.
Right. And Vincent, and I know I'm going to say this wrong. Gastafaro plays Deputy Rick Cologne, and I recently watched that fan film. Was it Don't Walk Alone in the Woods? Whatever it's called, I forgot. Part 2. And
The
he's
one with
in
the
that.
hiker, I think.
Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And Tommy Jarvis is in this as well. And
Mm-hmm.
it's actually, if you get a chance to watch it, go watch that fan film. It's pretty decent. Anyway, the characters in this movie are kind of just perfect. This is also the only Friday film up to that point, and I think since it actually had kids at the camp.
Yeah. Yeah, I do remember that.
Right.
They had one
Um,
cabin set with they had little ones in there.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
like I said, there's kids at the camp. There's a little bit more danger. Jason is this unstoppable zombie now who happens to be played by 2 different actors in this movie. There's a
Yeah.
whole story behind that. The first actor that plays Jason in this movie, and basically the way you know which one is which is if it's daytime, It's a guy named Dan Bradley, and he was hired.
Okay,
He was
okay.
hired to play Jason, but by the time they started filming, he had put on some weight. So if you look at Jason in that paintball scene, he's a little
Hmm.
pudgy, a little out of shape. That's Dan Bradley. The producers didn't
Okay,
like it. They didn't like how he looked, so they let him go and hired this guy named C.J. Graham, who was like a more imposing guy. He was like an ex-marine, and he was a nightclub owner. There's a whole
okay.
story
Yeah,
about how he even
Graham.
got
Yeah, I've seen Graham at some cons.
right.
Graham is the guy. He talks a lot of shit. I like him. Talks a
Yeah,
lot of shit.
the producer said, he was perfect. As a military guy, he's perfect because he followed the orders exactly as he was given. He did exactly what they told him to. He was able to
Mm,
have like since Jason was like an undead zombie now, like he had like a stiff way to move, and he was perfect. He was more physical. So he
yeah.
ends up anytime that you see Jason in the dark, at night, it's Graham. Yeah, CJ Graham. And
Okay.
pretty much all the scenes of Jason, except for the paintball scene, happen at night. So it's mostly C.J. Graham as Jason in this movie,
Damn. Okay.
and
I
it's
didn't know. I didn't know that at all, man.
yeah, this is one of
Did
the
not know that.
Jasons that I really like. Between the
Yeah.
Jason in 6 and 7, seven in particular is my favorite look for Jason,
Hmm.
but 6 is my favorite Friday movie. Um,
Right.
Lots of craziness happens in this movie, man. Jason pushes a girl's face through a into a wall. You see like the imprint on the other side.
Yeah.
He
The RV scene.
flips an RV, flips a fucking RV and stands on. He jumps on top of that shit. Man, you can't tell me that isn't like the most iconic scene from this movie.
Yeah.
Like Jason's just a
Yeah. I
badass
agree.
in this movie, man. And
Yeah.
this getting into the plot is almost pointless in this movie. It's just Tommy Jarvis trying to convince the sheriff that Jason's back. The sheriff don't believe him, of course. And the sheriff's daughter is now kind of interested in Tommy Jarvis. Blah blah blah. None of
Hmm.
that matters. Uh, the movie is just fun. It's just fun. It's got great characters. Like I said, it's got kids at the camp, which we haven't seen and we haven't
Yeah.
seen since. This is the only Friday the 13th movie with no nudity in it, oddly enough, because
Yeah. I don't.
it was yeah the
I don't remember
uh,
any. I don't think there was any scenes in there really. Most of the
producers
scenes,
got
like
kind
you're
of
saying, were
turned off.
covered
Yeah,
type shit. Yeah.
yeah. The producers got kind of turned off after part five. Part five is basically like softcore Skinamax movie. It came out at the perfect time, I guess, like in my life, uh, for me to just love it. The soundtrack is great to me. Um,
Oh yeah.
the ending is cool as hell. Like, yeah, logically, some of the stuff doesn't make sense. But if you're coming into a Friday the 13th movie, with logic in mind, you're in the wrong place to begin with.
Wrong spot.
Right, right. And I think this Friday Part 6 is the movie where they really perfected the balance of horror, a little bit of comedy, great
Mm.
like great cinematography because this movie doesn't look cheap.
No,
Some
no, it
some
doesn't.
horror
Yeah,
movies
but
just look cheap. This movie looks very well made, and the special effects are actually pretty decent. Like everything in this movie holds up well. Like I watch stuff now with the eye of okay, I know I can see the special effect. If there's any kind of visual effects, like in this movie, there's lightning strikes at the beginning of the movie, where they
mm.
don't look corny and fake and whatnot. Everything
No,
just
that
looks really good.
that looked real to me. Yeah, right, right,
Right.
absolutely.
Um, the little details of when Tommy Jarvis is going to pull the pole out of Jason after the lightning strikes. There's like smoke coming off the pole, and
Hmm.
it's just cool that, and of course, it doesn't make any sense for there to be maggots on Jason's body. Uh, he was all like
Yeah,
dried
after
up
all of
and
those
dead,
years, yeah,
right?
yeah.
Under in a coffin, like whatever. None of that makes sense. Who cares? Um, no one gives a shit. Um, but the James Bond opening, like this movie knows what it is.
Yeah,
This movie knows, like
right. I
even I
forgot
knew,
about that part
right,
too.
bro. Even I knew at 8 or 9 years old when I watched it for the first time. I was like, oh, this stole that from James Bond. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah.
like, and I didn't care. It was cool as fuck. I don't know, man. I just have a love for part six, and I think it carries on. I know I'm not the only one, obviously, because if I talk to people about this movie and about Friday the 13th movies, a lot of them will say that Friday the 13th is either my favorite or like the most fun Friday movie. Um,
Right, right,
and
distinctive. Yeah.
and it carries on to like the game, the NES game that we were just talking about. That game pulled
Hmm.
from a lot of the previous movies.
Right.
And one of the things that definitely pulled from part six is there were kids. There were kids in the camp that you had to take care of.
Yeah, we had to protect the kids, the number of
Right.
kids, because as
Yeah.
Jason moved around, the numbers would
They
dwindle
would just
down,
yeah. um,
killing off the kids.
right, right. And yeah, just the ending, the way they kill him, I thought was pretty cool. He hit cut his neck with a boat motor. Everything about it
Yeah.
is just really fun to me. And what's crazy is that this movie didn't even do as well as part five. And that's more of an
Mm.
issue of when they released it. It came
Hmm.
out in August '86, and it came out like 2 weeks after Aliens. And
Ah,
Aliens was
okay. So they
still
had some.
Aliens was still running hard at the box office. And then the
Yeah,
week
yeah,
after it
yeah.
came out, The Fly came out.
Wow.
So
So yeah, they
like
had.
horror movie fans
It was.
had, yeah. So it only made like 19 million bucks when the previous one made like
Mm.
23 or something like that. It was had $3 million
Wow, I didn't know
budget.
that
It
either.
still made a lot of money though. Compared to its budget, it's
Yeah.
still, it's still a success, but it didn't make what they expected. And this is one of those movies that like
Hmm.
later on people started to appreciate it a lot more. You know what I'm saying?
Right, right.
Um, but yeah, that's those are just the simple reasons why I like this movie. I like a lot of the kills in it. Like I said, the girl getting her head twisted, the sheriff
Yeah, yeah.
getting folded in half. Uh,
Oh man, yeah, he got
yeah,
jacked up, man.
right.
Oh
The
man, yeah. Great scene though.
yeah.
Great scene.
So yeah, that's just my opinion about part six. Do you happen to have any any reasons? I don't want you to say criticisms, but like reasons why it's not up there on your list.
I mean, I don't dislike it at all. It just,
Yeah,
as far as like personal wise, it just wasn't one of my favorites. But yeah, it had some great kills in it. And even the end where he kind of like gets stuck in the lake, which I thought was really kind of like a cool piece for the series because of
yeah,
course, when he gets in a situation like that where it's like regen, with no release, he's going to go into hibernation. And that's what happened. He ended up staying at the bottom of the lake, with that chain around his neck, not
yep,
being able to get back up, and he just kind of just cocooned, until part seven. So that was a great piece right there. It kind of added some more fluff to the series
yeah,
because again, I don't know. The thing that gets me about the entire series is the timeline jumping around, between the different movies and stuff like that from the first film all the way up until the last one that they had because you got questions on what transpired in between, because I think between part six and part seven they had started to build more homes around the lake and everything, almost like they had forgot that there was
right,
even a Jason there.
right,
So that's when part seven happened and stuff like that. Again, the timelines and stuff really get me, involved in like the behind the scenes and the I guess the backstories, so to
right,
speak.
right.
So
I
yeah,
think
great piece.
one of the things that I always thought was weird is that this maniac killer killed all these people, and his body is in the lake, but nobody decided to go look for it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
like even when Jason died originally, right? If Jason died when he was a kid, supposedly in the lake, did anybody look
yeah.
for his body?
You'd figure they
Like
would have dredged the hell out of that lake, man.
right?
Yeah.
Because typically, unless there's something holding you down or something happens to the body, like a body's gonna float when it dies. And you're talking about a lake that's how big is Crystal Lake? Number one, like this lake changes sizes and locations all the time because when we get into we're not gonna really talk about Jason Takes Manhattan, but
Mm.
geez, like is Crystal Lake like one of the Great Lakes or something? You know what I'm saying? Like it's
Yeah,
you can
it's
sail
kind
a
of
you can sail a cruise ship, from Crystal Lake to New York. That's freaking stupid. But
pretty big, but I don't think it's that big. Yeah, yeah,
right,
I get
like
what
is the
you're
Loch Ness monster in this shit? You know what I'm saying? So like, what happened to
saying. Yeah,
what happened to the bodies? So it baffles me
yeah,
that they wouldn't even think to like maybe we should pull the body. They said it's tied to a rock underwater. How deep is
yeah.
this lake? I don't think it's that deep.
The locals had enough for his ass. Fuck him.
Right,
Let
right.
his ass
They,
stay down there.
but they didn't have enough to bury him, give him a grave. You know what I'm saying? Like
Mm-hmm.
because in part 5, I think they even talk about that. Like in part 4, after he was killed, that he was cremated, and
Mm-hmm.
that was something they were actually going to address in part 6. The writer, he was going to address
Mm.
that continuity error, but the producer was like, no, I don't want to cut. It had something to do with like Jason's father, and that like
Mm. Yeah,
secretly,
yeah, that,
yeah, that secretly he paid for a grave instead of having him cremated. But they cut that out of the script, so that's why they just say like, okay, we just got to turn your brain off, and hopefully you didn't even watch part 5. You don't give a shit.
yeah. Because you think about that, like his father wasn't even introduced at all through the series,
Right,
man. Like,
right, and that's the reason they cut him
and I
out.
know his
Yeah,
father's name is Elijah. I think it is.
something like
His
that.
father's name was Elijah. But yeah, I mean, where was he plugged in at?
Right,
Go to comic books and shit for that.
right. And
You
the
know.
only reason that the writer was even going to do that is because they kind of painted himself in a corner by saying that he was cremated. So he had to figure out a way to bring him back. And the producers, when they told him he could write the script, they told him that like whatever you do, you just got to bring Jason back from the dead. And he's like, well, shit, y'all
Right, right.
cremated him. He's like, what do you want me to do?
Yeah,
uh,
yeah. What we gonna do there? Put
right.
the ashes together? Like, yeah, really? Yeah.
Yeah, man. So
Jeez,
yeah,
man.
I just think I just think it's funny that like the town, this killer has a grave amongst regular people. Like
Yeah.
that wouldn't happen, but it
No.
has to happen for the movie.
Right,
And
right.
whatever, I'm here for it. I'm here for it. Like whatever.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
something to think about because I didn't know that at all. But yeah, it makes sense. Like, why does this guy have a grave? You know,
Right.
he's murdered countless people.
Right.
You know,
Like why
and
does he get that much? And
you're gonna
he's
give him
got
a grave? Like,
a decent sized grave,
yeah,
headstone. Like this ain't no like wooden stick with his name on, no shit like that. Like it was,
yeah.
yeah, they had a
Some
funeral for this
makeshift
dude.
shit.
Right. Two sticks
Motherfucker, go
tied
right here. All
together.
right, leave him
Yeah.
alone. Yeah.
Yeah. Like he's supposed to be in a pauper's grave somewhere, like out in the woods or whatever, nobody can ever find. You know?
It would be the best. Yeah, yeah. That
Yeah.
way nobody's tampering with it.
Yeah.
So that's something to think about. Maybe again, like you were saying, maybe it's just something that happened, within the production and the writing and stuff, where they were just
Yeah.
trying to make things happen and didn't really clean up the mess behind
Yeah.
themselves and stuff.
Yeah.
Mm.
But yeah, that's why I love part 6, man. I don't know. Part 6 is one of the only Friday the 13th movies that I can legitimately just, if it's on, I'll watch it, or I
Mm.
can just put it on in the background. It's one of those like Commando, like Aliens, like uh,
Yeah,
you know, Terminator 2, like movies I can just put on in the background and I'm totally fine
right.
with it. And it's just an
Never gets
affinity I
old.
have for this. Yeah, I just have this thing for this movie.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I agree
Yeah,
with you 100%, man. Yeah, I'd watch it if it came on with no problem because just
yeah,
just for the kills alone were just entertaining. So.
yeah, yeah,
And again,
yeah,
as a child, some of the parts kind of scared me, but as an adult, it's just like you said, it's entertaining to watch. You know,
yeah,
and has nothing to really to do with the plot or anything.
yeah.
So
For anyone watching, we want to know, what are your favorite Friday the 13th movies? Your top two, if you have two, three, if you have an honorable mention, however you want to do it. Even if you want to put them in order from 1 to, what is it, 10, 11, whatever. Uh, let us know. Let us know in the comments, because our
right,
next video, we're going to be talking about, well, I'm going to be talking about part 7 and why it's my second favorite Friday movie. What about you, Alex?
I'm gonna be talking about part four,
Yeah.
the
Now,
final chapter.
I can honestly say that like I had a hard time. I honestly had a hard time choosing part 7 over part 4.
Yeah,
Yeah, part 4
part
is like
four
maybe it's right
got
there.
some gems, man.
Right, part
Hmm.
4 is right there. Part 4, they kind of perfected the formula. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
With
yeah,
human Jason. All right. Make sure if you
definitely.
like these videos, hit the share, hit the like, hit the subscribe. We really appreciate it. Trying to grow the channel.
Please, please,
Trying to
and keep
trying
the
to get to
discussions.
1,000 subs.
Keep the
Yeah. Keep the discussions
Right,
coming, man.
keep
We
the
really
discussions
appreciate
going.
it,
If you
y'all.
guys got You guys got any comments that you want to put in the comments? Please, by all means, suggestions, anything like that. And
Yeah.
again, I'm gonna put this out there. We are not trying to be bona fide experts. We are guys that are explaining and just demonstrating that we have a huge love for this stuff,
Yeah.
and we want you guys to participate. Please,
Yeah.
hang out for a while.
Yeah.
Teach us or learn something from us.
Right. Right.
Because this is what it's all about. This is how communities are formed, and this is how this stuff continues to have life.
Yeah.
And it's not going to have life unless we are the ones that are adding to it.
Yeah. Excellent.
That's what it's all about.
Excellent. Excellent. So, hey, thanks for watching, and we will be back soon. We'll be back real soon with part 2 of this
Part
video.
2.
So, thanks for watching. See y'all next time.
See you soon.